Hello and welcome to Overseas Leafs Report. In this very first episode of the Overseas Leafs Report, I'll be looking back at some of my very first memories as a Maple Leafs fan growing up abroad and look ahead to the 2018-2019 season, which starts with a home game against the Montreal Canadiens. The biggest news of the offseason for the Maple Leafs came in the form of a tweeted photo on July 1st, where John Tavares announced that he was realizing his childhood dream of playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This also made me think about some of my first memories as a Leafs fan growing up abroad. Some of my first memories of being a Leafs fan took place while I was abroad. I think back to 93, so I would have been 7 at the time. I was living in Bangkok, Thailand, and I remember watching the Leafs against the Kings, and obviously followed that team because I loved Felix Potvin. Thought it was so cool that there was a guy named Felix playing goalie for the Maple Leafs at the time. So that was maybe my first memory, and then another strong memory I've got is when Sundin joined the Leafs from the Nordiques in '94, and then that was just confirmed, like my allegiance to the Leafs. After the Nordiques moved in '95 to Colorado, that was it. I was going to be a Leafs fan for the rest of my life. So now we look ahead to the 2018-2019 season for the Maple Leafs, which I think begins with a sense of optimism among the fan base and also a renewed sense of expectations. I mean, the past 2 seasons making the playoffs was entertaining for the fan base, but I think now, especially if you've added a big piece in the free agent market like Tavares, I think now the expectation is to win, and that won't be easy, obviously. There's 31 teams fighting for the same goal, but I think the Leafs start the season in a good spot. The big news going into Game 1, obviously, is the absence of William Nylander, who is still without a contract. He held out throughout the preseason, and he obviously has high expectations in terms of the salary he'll command and maybe the length of contract. So I'm curious to see how long that may persist. Part of me thinks he's played his last game in the blue and white, so it'll be an interesting situation to follow. Another newsworthy item has to do with the backup goalies being picked up on waivers today. Both Curtis McElhaney and Calvin Pickard were picked up by Carolina and Philadelphia, respectively, which puts the added pressure on Garrett Sparks as a first-time NHL backup full-time. He had a good season in the AHL. And I think it certainly hits the Leafs' goaltending depth, which was a strength going into the season. But I'm confident that Dubas and company have made the right decision, and that we'll get good goaltending seasons out of Freddie Anderson and Garrett Sparks. The Leafs open their season with a game at home against the Montreal Canadiens, so I'm excited to see the pregame ceremony for the first game, player introductions, and hopefully a big win for the Leafs on the first night. Given the time zone, that game will be at 7 a.m. for me on Thursday morning. I will not be watching it live because I will be at work, so I'll make sure to catch up as soon as I get home in the afternoon. So no spoilers in the meantime, and go Leafs go! So obviously this is a brand new channel, so feel free to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment for things you'd like to see in the future, and look forward to seeing you again for episode 2.